All right, so sorry, guys, I'm going to repeat what I just said to you guys. So on the board, I had asked you to finish plotting what we started yesterday. So you should have already had the scales set up. One thing that I was reminding people as I was walking around is the depth was the X, that's the independent. The Y is plant bubbles, and yes, there are two of them, which means there's two plants. So there'll be two lines. So to do this, you go to the X, which is the depth of 1, and a number of oxygen bubbles as 29. 1, we didn't count by 1, so there is no 1 on the graph. So where do I put 1? In the middle of it. So 1 is around here, and I go, that's a depth of 1, and I go up. Oh, you shouldn't be drawing that line, sorry. You go up to 29, and you put your dot. If you did have a faint line going up, the Regents will not care. They're good with that. So as long as it's clear, like that's your dot. And when you do draw your actual line, so if you did have that faint line of your pen going up, as long as it's clearly different than that line right there. There's lots of ways to make sure this gets put in the right spot. So if you wanted to use a ruler or a straight edge to kind of draw it so that you don't have to do that line that I drew. So as long as it's on there as accurate as possible, you're good. Now, when it comes to the Regents, and I don't know if they told you this last year, they're really picky about these graphs. Like if you screw up even just a little bit, it's wrong. And how we grade these is they actually give us a clear copy of this graph and we put it over yours and it has to line up with their graph. They do make it a slightly thicker line, slightly bigger dots than it has to be, so that it gives you a little bit of room to make a mistake, but not too much. So you do have to be as accurate as possible. That is one reason I recommend using a ruler or drawing these faint lines, because if we kind of just use our eyeball to get to 1, or like if we were using our eyeball to get to, let's say 35, if I was just kind of using my eyes or even just trying to estimate it, sometimes your eyes will drift, and instead of being here, you might have ended up over here, and that would be wrong. So you do have to be as accurate as possible with these. Any questions on your graphs? Did they look something similar to this? All right, perfect. Okay, so those are your graphs. As those of you who've been to lab already, we are starting a graphing lab this week. So I already started this morning. Did Mr. Miga start this morning? Anybody have Mr. Miga? You guys all have me? You're so lucky. All right. So anyway, we're starting graphing in lab. So if you felt a little rusty with this, we're going to have a whole 2 or 3 more periods to work on just perfecting our graphing, because it is something you got to be pretty comfortable with. Okie doke. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is talk about those packets that I handed out. There is no difference between the pink or the blue. We are going to come back to the notes, so don't put them too far away. No difference between the pink and the blue. I didn't have enough to make all purple or all blue, so I went with half and half and let you pick. As you can see on the title, these are the reference tables for physical setting earth science. I like to refer to these as your ESRT. Where do you think I get the E, the S, the R, and the T? What do you think ES is for? Earth science. The RT, reference tables. So it's kind of annoying to say the earth science reference tables. It's just a little annoying. So I always say it as your ESRT. Like on the board, often I'll say, take out your ESRTs. So in that case, I'm talking about these purple or blue packets. These reference tables. What's a reference table? Like if you have to reference something, what does that mean you're doing? Looking back at it, looking it up. Like what's the reference section in the library? Do you know? No? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get Mrs. Hogan down here and have her explain the reference section of the library. That's where all the like books, like the facts are. Like if you're gonna look up, like, you know, maybe you don't even know what an encyclopedia is, but that's where the encyclopedia is. That's where the atlases are. It's where all like the random facts are in the library. So this is where do you guys get your references? Like if you had to look something up, where would you look? Google. No doubt, everybody looks everything up on Google. Because what if I said, hey, who was the 10th president? Anybody know off the top of their head? Who might know that answer? Siri, the 10th president. You know who else might know that answer of who was the 10th president? Well, yeah, history teachers. So there are some people who know those random facts, but you know who knows all those random facts? That guy who won a couple $1 million on Jeopardy. Is his name Ken Jennings? Nobody even knows. Okay, Ken Jennings was like the #1 winner on Jeopardy. He's just like, basically it was Google in his brain somehow. He's the only person in the world who probably knows basically any question that you would Google, he knows the answer. Other than winning $1 million on Jeopardy, do you think that helps him out in life? Now, granted, I wouldn't mind winning $1 million on Jeopardy, but who cares if you could just Google the answer, right? Like in 5 seconds, you could know who the 10th president was. It would probably take you harder and longer to figure it out, like to go through the racks in your brains. You might have to think about, okay, who is this? You might have had to go in order and figure out. Maybe you know that, but you don't know the 10th off the top of your head. Do you have classes or have you had a class in school where you just need to know random facts? Like what class? Living environment. Didn't you just have to know random facts last year? Social studies. Ooh, how about math? Do you ever try to know just random, like you have to memorize anything in math? Math facts you had to memorize. What's another thing, like now that math facts are stuck in your brain, what's a thing that you might have to memorize last year or this year for math? Graphing, okay. Definitions. Okay, what I guess I'm getting at is formulas. How many formulas have you had to memorize in your life as a student? Quite a few. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Some of them never leave your head. You don't remember exactly what that's for. Like if you're me. But you know you had to learn that at some time. Guess what? This year, there will be no memorizing of random facts. All random facts are right here in this packet. This year, instead of using Google, you will use this packet. And actually, it might even be easier than Google, because in Google, you might have to sift through like a couple of things, a couple of pages before you find the answer. Here, it's all right here in front of you. Anytime you're like, darn it, I wish I could Google that in this class, you turn to this packet and you look up the answer. But you're like, well, I don't get to use Google on a test, right? Unless you're cheating. You do get to use this packet on every homework, every class assignment, every lab, every quiz, every test, even the Regents. You get like an old school Google. Slay, 100%. It's not just basically cool. It is. This is the answer to about 65 questions on the test. Why did I pick that number 65? 101. Basically, if you know how and where to look in this packet, how to use and where to look, you will pass the Regents. Pretty cool, right? The answers. This is, instead of calling it the reference tables, we could call it your 16-page cheat sheet. You could call it old school Google, but it's a cheat sheet sounds like better, right? If you were to write down, if you were told, if you were going to cheat, not that any of you would, what would you write on a cheat sheet? The answers, random facts, everything you need to know, and it's all right here, and you get to use it even on the Regents.
Are we allowed to write?
So here's the thing, we will write notes in this one. This is yours. In fact, put your name on it. We will write on this one, but Sarah, I'm sorry, on the Regents, you get a brand new one. Okay, and probably on tests, I'll also give you a clean ESRT. Earth Science Reference Table. And by clean, I mean one you haven't written on. So I will in fact encourage you, and I will actually force you. Sometimes our notes will be right in this packet. Like we'll put like, here's an empty spot. I might put a little note here and an arrow to something and help you remember it. But yes, then you do have to remember those notes we took on here, unfortunately. So it is super cool because the answers are here. So then you might be thinking, well, then how do people fail the Regents? If number one reason, they don't use it. I honestly, that's not even where I was going, but that is absolutely the reason. If you don't use it, there are some questions Mr. D and I can't answer unless we look them up. Like, it's not like there is just something we don't even put in our head because it's a waste of our brain space, let alone yours. Like, this is what we do and we don't even memorize it. So using it is really important. The other reason is take a look at some of this stuff. Let's look in this upper right-hand corner. It's a chart about specific heat. Do you guys know what specific heat is? No. And does it tell you what specific heat is here? I mean, it does tell you that it's joule. Well, I can't read it up there. It's joules per gram per degree Celsius. So some of you, if you know what a joule is, but does anybody know what a joule is? That's what I thought. So unless you learn the things that go with this, so I'm going to have to teach you what specific heat is. And then I'm going to tell you guys this chart's, all you have to do is read it and pull the answer right off of it. But if you don't know what specific heat is, that's useless. So whereas some questions are super easy, like just purely reading it off here, and even if you were to take the Regents right now, you'd get them right. Some of them are confusing because they're topics that you just don't understand yet. So how do people fail is that they either don't learn how to use this or they don't learn what I'm talking about when we're using this. Basically, after this week, we will use this just about every single day. So it's not so much this week, except we are going to like start to talk about it. Most chapters use it a lot. Chapter 5, though, we only use it once, but almost every other chapter, we're going to use it every single day. Now, I did say, and I was kind of mean about it, don't take the staple out. The main reason for that is if you could open up to pages 8 and 9. 8 and 9 is like a double table. Like they go together. And if you did it like a normal packet where I have them stapled like this, you really can't read across this page, whereas this time we need to go from here straight over here. So taking it out and just having it in a binder. If you had it in a binder and you open it up to this page, you're going to have a big gaping hole here and you're not going to be able to follow it across. Okay, so there is a reason it's stapled weird, and there's a reason I want to keep it stapled. Here's what I do recommend. So you could put this in the, if you have a binder, put it in the very front of your binder so you don't have, we're going to use it every single chapter. If you, or the back. If you have a folder, just stick it in there where it's nice and easy. That's why it's blue or purple. So it doesn't blend in with everything else. So you can be like, open it and grab it. You don't even have to look through to see, oh, is this what I'm looking for? I also suggest, and this is what I'm going to tell my own daughter, can I borrow this for a second? Regular binder. If you have a pocket, that's a good place to put it. Because we're going to use it every single day. When you open and close a binder every single day, they tend to get broken early sometimes. Do you have to listen to me? No, do what you do you. Just bring it every single day. I will have spare copies, but like if we did an important note and on a spare copy, and then you have to leave that copy here, you're going to not have that note on yours. Ooh, did you get a special one? Did you get the white page on the back? Have you ever seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? That's like the golden ticket. It's not, you don't get anything special, but I feel there's only 4 of them like that. I know. All right. So that's that. So far we finished the graph. So we finished the graph, where's page 5? And we need to go over your homework. So, what? We can go over your homework. You're good, I hope so. So like I said yesterday, I really, really hope you actually tried on this homework. If you didn't, you might be screwed. Did you notice this note over here? Yeah, you know, but you got me thinking, and I'm like, that's a good idea. And I always did tell you, no, I would have done it anyway, but it might have been like Monday. And there's no need to wait till Monday. But I told you, like I told you, Carter, I gave you a day in between notice. So we are going to have a quiz. It is going to be purely on observation inference prediction. Remember, there's two types of predictions, cyclic and non-cyclic. Happens in a cycle, like moon phases. Non-cyclic just happens randomly, like an earthquake. If it's cyclic, it's easy to predict. If it's non-cyclic, it's hard to predict. Classification, remember putting things in groups based on an observation. And that quiz is going to be on Friday. It's going to be short, real short.
How many questions?
Holy cow. 10 or less. Okay. Doable? No, because if it's one question, you either get 100 or a 0. I would hate to do that to someone. Even with 10 questions, you get one question, you're 90, 2 questions, 80, 3 questions, 70. You miss 4 questions, you fail. I prefer bigger assignments for grades like that, but quizzes are okay because they're worth so little in your overall grade that even if you bomb one, you'll be okay. 100 on lab, 100 on your homework. Do test corrections. We don't do quiz corrections, but we do test corrections. There's ways to make up for bad grades on a quiz or a test. Also, as long as we're at it, I want to point out, homecoming's coming up much sooner. It is September 24th. That is not Saturday. It's the next Saturday. It's a week from now, a week and a half from now, sorry. So it says you may not, and this is just the dance part, you may not be failing more than one class. Here's the scary part. Many teachers don't have many grades in there. Today I'll end up having 4 grades. That's a lot actually. If you miss one assignment right now, you're gonna be failing, which is bad. In fact, my very own daughter, the earth science teacher's daughter, has a 40 in earth science right now. I almost kicked her out of the house when I saw it. Okay, not acceptable. Turned out she did the homework. She was just supposed to put it in on Teams or their version of Teams, and she didn't. She just did it on paper. Luckily, it looks like I got an alert that he accepted it anyway. I almost kicked her out. Unacceptable. She can get a 40 in ELA. I don't care about ELA or social studies, but there is no 40s in earth science for the earth science teacher's daughter. Not allowed. Oh, so mad. No, she is not allowed to fail earth science. No, she's got to have higher than that. Sorry. She's in honors, so she better do better. Yeah, her choice, but yeah, in Eden. Moving on, let's go over the homework. Guys, what's the #1 rule of earth science?
Read the directions.
Read every word.
Read every word on the paper.
Read every word, not just the directions. So you may say to yourself, so read the directions, choose the word or statement that best answers the question. Okay, you knew that. You didn't technically have to read it, but it didn't kill you. No. Whoa. #1 is the perfect example of why you have to read all the words. So you read the question, which most of you would read the entire question usually. Using a ruler to measure the length of a stick is an example of, you guys know what to use a ruler for, right? Don't look at the answers. What do you use a ruler for? Measuring. So if you didn't read all the words, what answer do you think people picked? 3. Why would people pick 3? Because rulers are used for measuring. And that is exactly what the Regents will do. That is why they put that word there. If you read the rest of that #3, a ruler is used to measuring the rate of change of a stick by making an inference. Because the question was the length of a stick. Is that the answer? Is that what we use rulers for? No way in heck. But they expected, because humans are pretty lazy, not just you, but humans in general are pretty lazy. They expected a human just to read the word measuring and circle it. It is not the answer, cross it off. So is a ruler used for extending the sense of sight by using an instrument? It sure is, but should you stop there? No, I want you to read all of the words. So keep in mind, 1 is pretty good right now. Is it number 2? Is a ruler used for calculating the percent error by using a proportion? No, we already established it's not 3. Is it 4, predicting the length of a stick by guessing? No. So in that case, you might have gotten away with only reading the first question, but don't count or answer. Do not count on that. All right, number 2, which action can be performed most accurately by only using the human senses? Now, there might be 2 answers that can be done by only using the human senses, but we want the one that's most accurate. So could you tear sheets of paper into squares whose sides measure 1 centimeter? Could you? You could try. It's kind of a choice. Could you add 10 grams of salt to a cup of water? How many of you have even measured anything in grams, first of all? Yeah, we're not good at that by without using a tool. Could you measure air pressure of a room? No, you need a barometer. Could you count shells from a beach? Yes, you could. Now, which one is more accurate, tearing or counting? 100%. I think you guys think I'm being a little silly still. Yeah. So those ones were a case where you might not have needed to read everything. Number 3. Did we already talk about where to start with this question? Yeah, we did. This is where you start reading. The map below shows a path of an ash cloud that resulted from the Mount St. Helens volcanic eruption. The map was developed from satellite photographs. So how'd they make this map? They used a picture, so a photograph from a satellite to make this map. So, hey, did they guess about this map? No, they knew exactly where to put the ash cloud because they looked at a satellite photograph. So the path of an ash cloud was most likely determined by, so we already said they didn't guess. So they didn't make an inference. They just flat out made an observation. For number 4, do you guys know what the word interpretation means? If you interpret something. What's a sign language interpreter do or a Spanish interpreter do? Translate. Do you guys all know what the word translate means? So in this case, a translation, or what does sign language interpreter make it so if somebody's signing and we're using an interpreter, how do they make it so you can understand it, right? Yeah. They make it so you can explain it. So in this case, an explanation or an interpretation based on an observation. What's that a fancy way of saying? That is making an inference, making a guess, explaining it based on an observation. This one's a good one because this is a perfect example. While on a field trip to a large lake in New York State, so the person is actually on the field trip looking at the lake. They can hear it, they can see it, they can smell it, they can touch it. See it. I don't remember which one I forgot, but you get the idea. An observer recorded 4 statements about the lake. Which one of them is most likely an inference? Hey, what's an inference? A guess. If you wanted to, you could replace the word inference with the word guess. So really it's saying which one of these statements is most likely a guess. How it's formed, the lake, how the lake was formed. The water is clear enough to see the bottom. If you're standing there, you can see that, not guessing. A log is floating on the lake. If you're there, you can see it. The surface temperature of the lake is 18.5. If you're there, you can stick the thermometer in and you can figure it out. So the only guess is how it was formed. Okay, and this next one, a group of objects or grouping of objects based on similar characteristics. That is the definition of classification. And for number 7, to classify things, you use observations, answer 3. Anybody have any questions on the homework? Awesome. Zach got 100. Anybody else do good? Awesome, guys. So you do have a quiz on this stuff on Friday. No actual homework. It's been a pleasure.